Hello, and thanks for coming along to And We Have an Office Dog, the digital agency podcast where we talk to agency owner-directors and learn more about what makes them tick. From the things that make them similar to the things they'd rather have known sooner, where they've had success and where they've learned some hard lessons. All will be revealed with your host, Chris Simmons, the Agency Accelerator, and he'll be talking to a different awesome agency person in each episode, asking them 4 questions and seeing where the conversation takes us over the next 25 minutes. Okay, so let us begin. Over to you, Chris.
Thanks, voiceover guy. And on the podcast today, we've got John. Hello, John. How are you doing?
Very well, thanks, Chris. Thank you for having me.
No problem at all. John, you are the Dark Horse from Dark Horse. How are you doing in your very dark office? I know no one can see this. It's an audio-only podcast. It is very hot today. It's probably quite hot there.
I am on brand. I am. Our colours are black and red, and I can tell you that the clothes are red, but my face feels very red. It is absolutely sweltering here. So
yeah, well,
but I'm doing okay, and I'm looking forward
thank you for putting the time in for this. I've been looking forward to this episode. You've been running Dark Horse for how many years now?
About 3.5.
And how long have you been in the industry?
4, give or take. I am not what we would probably call an industry veteran, but that's part of our genesis. That's part of the reason why we exist.
I'm really excited. Okay, so before we go into the typical podcast stuff, so tell us a bit about you. Tell us a bit about the agency. How did it come to be?
Sure. Well, in effect, I've got 2 companies, and in the previous company, which is still going, I call it the previous company. It doesn't get as much of my attention these days. It was through growing that I first had exposure to digital marketing, and to cut a long period of time relatively short, I felt I was subject to a lot of mediocre practices within working with these award-winning, astroturf-laden picnic tables agencies. They look like an agency, they sound like an agency. And do you know what, Chris? I think that they are brilliant agencies at heart. If I was John Lewis, I'm sure I'd get access to some fantastic people and would have gone through a slightly different process. But I wasn't, I'm not, and things didn't quite work out that I wanted to. So I've spent thousands of pounds at digital agencies, and that is why Dark Horse exists, and I set it up because I felt there's a far better way of treating what I would call the little guy. Within the marketplace. So all those guys that were in tough marketplaces up against big competition with deep pockets, I didn't feel they were getting the kind of love that they deserve. So I had no intention of going into digital. I've never done a day's, or rather been paid to do a day's PPC, SEO, social, which is our core services in my life. I'm not like a frustrated head of PPC or what have you that started their agency. I'm a frustrated customer who can empathize and understand what it takes to select an agency and understand the fears and all that go with it. And effectively, Dark Horse is to right the wrongs of that process, to take all the good bits that we received, and there were some, and keep those, and cut out all the rubbish and replace them with good. It's a common sense approach. So not a digital expert, and a frustrated customer who started their own. Be the change would be probably a nice tagline for that.
Well, I think what agencies do very well is the technical, the expertise-led stuff. But the biggest failing I often find is that they forget that a service is different to a product, and it needs to be handled in a different way. And that then usually leads to account management at an nth degree, which is why you see the ping pong tables and the AstroTurf, because people think, I don't know how to make them feel like that we're really good, and results aren't enough. So Dark Horse has been running for 3 years now. What do you think has been one of the kind of biggest successes that you've seen?
I think that the reaction to our messaging and positioning is strong, and that comes from our empathy of what I described. So it's very We're full of fantastic people. Of course, we are from a logical point of view and a technical point of view. To compete in the markets that we do, you have to be fantastic. You have to have specialists all over the pitch, to use a metaphor. High footballers, high strikers, and all that. But I think where we do well is having those conversations with the MDs and heads of marketing of e-commerce companies. And go behind the metrics, the KPIs, the trend lines, so to relate to them, so to understand the impact of good or bad digital marketing, for them to know that myself starting an agency and the people that work at Dark Horse know what it's like to go home of an evening and have rows because you're going through anxieties of stress and all these different things. There's a lot of account managers and PPC managers and PPC execs and all that jazz who have no concept of what it's like running a business and feeling that incredible pressure, the sword of Damocles hanging over to you. I've ignored my kids at times, not deliberately, of course, but they want to play with daddy as he comes home, and I'm rushing the kids to bed and all these different things. This is what good or bad digital marketing can bring, is the impact. It can allow you to have fantastic things, but it's a responsibility beyond trend lines. And I think a lot of digital agencies forget that. Clients are monthly reports, or they are partners, or other such wanky buzzwords. But no, we're more than that. Their arguments, their holidays, the ability to make sandcastles or not, to create memories. And I think this is where I'm going to say quote unquote relative success that we've had. I'm sure there are agencies doing better than Dark Horse out there and growing faster, but I'm sure there's lots that aren't. This is what resonates. This is where our success lies.
Yeah, and you know what? Once just on that last point, I think anyone listening to this now, just remember that success is what your success is, and not what you think everyone else thinks it is. There's a typical trope of you go to a conference and you say that you run an agency, and the second question after what you do is how many people are you, as if the assumption that more people means you're better. Naturally, you're not going to go in with what's your net profit, but are you happy doing what you're doing? Is the end goal that you're aiming for, what is that insight? Are the things you're doing now aligning with that end goal? And that might well be boutique agency of 3 staff and a decent turnover and a high net profit that allows you to have 3 holidays a year. It might be high growth, high stress, but early easy exit. But they're all different, and I think that's why quite a lot of agencies end up being the same, because they behave like this is just how it gets done. So your focus is in a not to be flippant, but it's sandcastles or no castles kind of thing. It's quite a nice way to deem the success of the business. It's focused on what you want out of life, and hopefully that then follows through into the right way with the team. If you go back in time, though, right to the very beginning of previous business, turn your attention into newly developed Dark Horse, and out of the side street there comes an actual Dark Horse, and it turns out that it's you from the future. And you have one piece of advice to give yourself. What advice would you give your younger, brand new agency starting self?
Brilliant question. There's the overall one piece of advice. There's a couple of small things that I'd say if it was myself talking to myself quickly. First of all, get off LinkedIn. It will kill your brain cells. Just stop that right now. I would say blow the whistle on Manchester City as soon as you can. Just do whatever you can now, because that's coming. Outside of that, I would say trust your gut. There's so much, not noise. There's so much good advice, or lots of advice, which can be bewildering at times, to do this, to do that, to create frameworks, methodologies, roadmaps, stand out, all these different types of things. And you will doubt yourself without question. You sometimes you'll think, am I a good person by telling the truth in all these different things? Because you're going to get shunned by other people within the industry and things like that, because you don't necessarily, you want to deal with the issues of digital marketing, almost like anti-establishment, if you like. But just know that you're going to work with some amazing people. You're probably going to create if you do stick your guns, you're going to create something that you should be proud of, that's special, and just don't give in. Whatever you do, don't give in. Don't necessarily focus on standing out. Just stand up for what you believe in. Dark Horse is a kind of embodification of what we believe in and how we were treated, and to be better and to be more. You don't have to have a USP. You don't have to have all singing, all dancing specialization. That you're the PPC agency for pig farmers in Peterborough, and what like all the books say that you should do. Just stand up for yourself.
Yeah.
If I had 40 seconds, 50 seconds, however long, that's what I'd say to my younger self.
I reckon you're right. I mean, again, it's an individual exercise, an agency as a leader. There's certainly proven financial benefits to being the PPC agency for pig farmers in Peterborough, but that's only because it depends on, typical digital marketing term, depends entirely on whether or not it's aligned with where you want to go. And if it's not aligned with where you want to go, then it's not the right thing to do. Niching isn't always the right thing to do just because there's a book that says it.
I think it's mathematically, Chris. I think it's mathematically the right thing to do from a logical point of view. And half of Dark Horse, well, a good chunk of Dark Horse is rather about the emotional side of things as opposed to the logical side of things. And I'm totally with you about niching down. But I also think, do you know what's harder than that? Is not to to be everything to everyone. That doesn't make a lot of sense at all.
No.
But you can actually aim, instead of being a PPC manager for pig farmers, be better for more people. Now that is really hard. Yeah, that takes a lot of effort and resource and things like that. And you know what? That wouldn't sell as many books because that's not an easier framework to follow. Yeah. And in fact, loads of books and loads of advice, and and if you were to listen to Stephen Bartlett on LinkedIn and stuff like that, there's some they sell things that I believe that are kind of mathematically easy to follow, because if it was tough, then that book isn't going to sell.
I'm with you on that one. The purposeful aspect of things makes a big difference, though, because if your positioning of your business is based on the purpose that you have for that business, then indirectly that is your niching, because only the people that fit that and fit that feel of what you're after and what you're doing is your own version of that. It's just not got a label for an industry or something along those lines. Is there something that, since you started, I'm sure there's been, as you mentioned, good success. Is there something that happened at some point during these 3 years where you've gone, shit, we've screwed up here, let's not do that again?
Get loads.
Apart from LinkedIn.
Wow, weekly. Which kind of, when you speak to a lot of other agency owners, it's all good news. The perception is often frequently different from the truth. You hear about the success stories of going from 0 to 100 employees in 24 months, but what you don't hear, and you hear behind the scenes, is that some people lay off 50 staff or what have you. That doesn't seek out. So have we made mistakes? Absolutely. I mean, we enter some. It wasn't an award. We don't enter awards, but there's a kind of top 50 agencies thing that it's just a lot of financial certification recently. Yeah. We got that quicker than I thought. I didn't think we were going to get on that, and then we didn't make it this year because I didn't enter. Frankly, because I split the companies up in two, so I basically half the turnover and things like that. So. There's things I look back on, and
in reality, it's different.
Yeah, it's like I didn't. Maybe I should have considered a little bit more than that. People will get the wrong idea. I've kissed a lot of. I would say, this is going to make me sound a bit like the old fossil that I am. So let's just stick to the truth and integrity that we're aiming for. I've stuck to. I've kissed a lot of entitled frogs over the 3.5 years. The candidate market has really changed things for the better in many ways, but made things a lot more difficult. That has been one of the things that I regret. Is again, I talked about gut instinct before. Is not making decisions quickly enough. If you think something's not right, if you think a person's not right, if you think a behavior is not right, or what have you, just action it quickly.
Yeah.
So far, I've not seen someone to use a metaphor, if it is, probably got it the wrong way around, similarly, what have you, a leopard change their spots. You can little make subtle changes here, but people are who they are, and if they're not on board, then move them on. I've wasted too much time with in the wrong areas.
Yeah, and well, the sad thing is quite a lot of agency owners do a similar thing. It's not it's not, there is no real blueprint beyond the fancy book words ones, and that's a bit like a baby book, because again, baby comes out, the book exists, but the baby isn't like what's in the book. So that it doesn't really matter. You've got to find some of these things out yourself, which, soft plug for the OMG Centre. If you want to find these things out quicker, give us a shout. We're here to accelerate agencies. That's the whole purpose for our existence. I slogged through 2 agencies, one of which almost killed me. And as I was slogging through these agencies, I learned a hell of a lot of lessons by a lot of metaphorical punches in the face. And having exited those, all I want to do is help. So if you're in a position anywhere, anyone listening, and you want to accelerate through some of these things, but still want to learn as you go rather than be told what to do, shout. John, someone's starting an agency and they like the cut of your jib. They haven't found you on LinkedIn for whatever reason, and they definitely didn't find you in the grandstands at Manchester City. What piece of advice would they ask you? What piece of advice, would you give them if they asked you?
Ignore most of the advice that you get. However, but since you've asked me, and it's not unsolicited, ignore unsolicited advice. Probably, I'll change it to that. But since you've asked, don't buy into this kind of fake it till you make it garbage. Like, stick to your principles and integrity. For me, that kind of noise and tropes and trite stuff that you would see on social media from people with an agenda of selling books or selling whatever it may be, the people that made it rich in the gold rush are the people that sold spades, not the people flogging in the midday sun. Fake it till you make it, for me, fail fast, all these different things, it's borderline fraud if you actually go down that. I know I've listened to lots of podcasts where you've got boastful agency owners talking about how they really did focus on sales right at the start, which I get that and understand. You've got to be commercially minded, but we weren't bothered about processes, we weren't bothered about service, we weren't bothered about products, and I'm sitting there listening and thinking, this is where empathy comes in, and what I refer to as being a customer. If I heard an agency owner talk like that and I'd been a customer of that agency, I'm thinking, I'm considering a legal case against you. What you're basically saying is, you knew you were shit and you still charged me a massive whack and blah, 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 with no kind of appreciation of what I wanted to do. So forget the fake it till you make it stuff. Actually, learn and do good work first and foremost. Secondly, I suppose that the more pertinent and probably better advice, maybe thinking about it, is ask yourself why you are creating an agency. If you are creating an agency to make money, which is a perfectly valid reason, because a lot of people don't like to talk about money, but I can tell you, and you'll know, Chris, that nearly every agency owner is not necessarily obsessed with money, but it's a big thing to them. It's why why we're doing this. We're not doing it for fun or what have you. If it's about money, then I would say, even though there is a strong, all about standing out and all these different things, being a paint by numbers agency is a very safe option. Talking about culture, community, putting out loads of social posts about your latest sports day or Christmas party and things like that. Unbelievably, these actually work. These do generate exposure. Go out and hire a personal branding expert ASAP, and then just start putting out all the bollocks, because you will get to a certain level if you just want to make money and you're not bothered about anything else. If you actually have a purpose, then which is different to making money, then get thick skin and potentially get investment, because this is bloody hard, and good people cost a lot of money. And there is no shortcuts in that sense. If you've got a purpose, you're going to have a really bumpy road ahead of you. So you are going to, as you think as you said, Chris, you're absolutely right. You're going to get punched in the stomach weekly. So, metaphorically speaking, get some abs, close your ears, and get prepared for a slog.
Yeah, I like to say it's like a roller coaster, whether you're good at it or not. It's champagne on the way up and punches in the face on the way down, and you can only really try and focus on the champagne. The thing with a lot of this is it starts with why, it starts with purpose. It should do, absolutely, and unfortunately, what happens is the vast majority of agency leaders are fantastically good people and genuinely very clever and good at the thing that they deliver, but they start an agency either by being jaded by their previous agency that they worked at, and I can do it better than them, so they go away and emulate and add, or they were great freelancers or consultants and took on enough work to go, I should hire someone, and then it kind of accidentally evolves into something. And very rarely is it until you get to between 3 and 5 people and you start seeing the numbers change and the stress levels change, do you go, why am I doing this? And then when you ask that question, you've got to really dig deep, because then it starts being like, I've got to unpick a lot of things I've decided are the right things and redo things, which isn't a bad thing, because ultimately you've got to do something that you enjoy if you can, because otherwise you may as well go and get an employee number at a big business somewhere else.
Very appealing at times, yes.
John, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. It's been wonderful talking to you.
Thank you very much. A pleasure. And
in our next episode, we'll be speaking with another agency leader to hear their story and the lessons they learned along the way. Thanks very much for listening.